Ready? I'd like to call the meeting of Brant County Council for January the 9th, 2024 to order. Noted the attendance has been taken and Councillor Kyle and Councillor Garneau are absent. For the first time in Brant County history, we're going to do a land acknowledgement. We have an official land acknowledgement that's, I admit maybe we could have got to sooner, but I think it's great that the staff took the time to do it properly and to consult with Six Nations to make sure the wording was right and it was how they wanted it to read. So the land acknowledgement is, as we gather, we acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the territories of the Mississaugas of the First Credit Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the traditional territory of the Attawandarock Nations. We remind ourselves that the County of Brant is situated on lands that are full of rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations. Inuit, Métis people today, we recognize the significance of their contributions to the past, present, and future of the land. As a county, we have the shared responsibility for the stewardship of the lands in which we live and work. As we are committed to the truth and reconciliation calls to action, we commit to continue learning, reflecting on our past, and working on the allyship. So that's going to be our land acknowledgement. And what we're going to do is we're going to have different councillors say it at different meetings, just so it goes right around the horseshoe. So again, I thank staff for doing this properly. And although we should have maybe done it a little earlier, at least we've done it, and it's done properly. So thank you. Which takes us to the approval of the agenda. Is there anything else to be added to the agenda? Seeing none, Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell that the County of Brant Council agenda for Tuesday, January the 9th, 2024 be approved as written.
Thank you. Any questions before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda the way it stands? Thank you. No one's opposed. Takes us to number 4, declaration of pecuniary interest. Does anyone see anything? If you do find something that comes up, please let me be the first to know. Takes us to number 5, which is delegations, and we do have a delegation 5.1, which is Kevin and Tyler. Kevin's online. Kevin, if you'd like to state your full name and the organization that you represent for us, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, my name is Kevin Bouchard. I'm a senior associate. I'm a planner with IPS Consulting Inc., and our office is at 647 Welland Road in Barrie, Ontario. I'm hoping that you're able to see my image and also see my screen. And let me just try and bring that up if I can. All right.
Yeah, we can see you, and if you just like to share your screen, that'd be great.
I think I have, but I think you should be able to pick that up now. It's indicating that I am sharing the screen.
No, not quite, but if you're all the way in Barrie, it's going to take a minute or two.
Well, I'm not quite there, but I am was deterred on attending in person because of the weather this afternoon, so I didn't want to take that chance. But let me just speak to the issue then, and I hope that the screen comes to the forefront. I'm here to speak to staff report 11524, and it deals with the property at 245 Oakland Road in the Scotland settlement area, of course, in Brant. And I'm representing my client, Rajan Jarheed. The property, I think you were familiar with it. There was a public meeting in mid-December, and just to refresh your memory, the property is about 70 acres in area, 66.9 acres in area, 27.1 hectares. And it has frontage on Oakland Road and also Highway 24. Our client and our firm is proposing a 37-lot residential subdivision on private wells and private services. So a draft plan of subdivision and implemented through a proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw to change from agricultural and natural heritage zones to suburban residential, SR, and also natural heritage zones. The staff report that's been provided is really been brought to the forefront as a result of the timing that's been imposed on BIT by Bill 90 for review of the applications, 90 days for a zone change application and 120 days for a subdivision. And if council is not able to meet those deadlines, then it initiates a refund, at least partial initially and then full over time, of the application fees. And so bringing this application forward is really being compelled by the regulatory timelines under Bill 90. Staff in a fairly fulsome report has identified 4 key concerns. One dealing with the potential for septic contamination loading in the area, access as a second concern to Highway 24 and to Oakland Road, refinements required to floodplain analysis and determination as part of plan of subdivision, and changes to the plan itself in terms of community design. So we recognize that these are real concerns that have been brought forward by staff. And in fact, we are engaged with staff, we're engaged with the provincial MTO and the Conservation Authority to address these issues. But our challenge here is that we've simply run out of time in terms of the statutory timeframes. And it's really, staff have brought forward an application for refusal, recognizing that these matters have not been adequately dealt with at this stage in the review process. What we're requesting is that council, instead of considering the refusal of the application, considering the report that's been put on the table by staff, provide for an alternative recommendation that allows for a 90-day extension of the time frame for consideration of these reports. And this is the image that I've shared on my screen, and it's also represented on page 3 of the staff report. And essentially, we're asking that the zoning bylaw amendment and the draft plan of subdivision timeframe for consideration be extended to April 30th of this year. And because of the difference in timing that's set out in Bill 90, there's a 90-day or a 60-day extension depending on how the dates fall. But the upshot is we're looking to see both of the applications extended to April 30th. And this will give us an opportunity, we think, to continue to discuss with staff the issues that are prevalent, and also, we think, bring them to resolution, at least as best we can, prior to the matter being considered later on this spring, I guess, on April 30th. Now, what we are proposing is, of course, that there would be no requirement for, or trigger, if you will, is a better word, for council to provide for reimbursement of any application fees during this period of time, and that we would not file an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal to try and resolve these issues. And in fact, we're looking for a stay of this decision or deferral of this decision while we continue to work with staff and try and bring these matters to consideration. That's my request to this council this evening. I'm happy to provide respond to any questions.
Are there any questions from the council to the presenter? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. I'm actually using the staff report, which is on the same subject, and it says in there that it is important to note that the deferral is not considered a decision under the Planning Act, and that even if the applicants agree verbally or in writing not to appeal without a decision, the applicant or agent can still appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal and request application refunds when planning application timelines are not met. So I would like to be sure that if we were to agree to what the applicant is requesting, that he's not going to fall back on this clause that in fact allows him to come back and demand refunds if we don't address his application within the original time frame.
Well, you have that request from us, and you have our assurance that we will not request the refund fee based on the statutory timelines that are set out under Bill 90. So all of this is being deferred until April 30th, and presumably by that time a decision can be made. And of course, this is not a request or any decision can be made if council agrees that we have satisfied the concerns of staff, and then perhaps that application can be approved. And if they do not, of course, then it can be refused. And all of that would happen without any request for repayment or return of fees. So we're making this request in good faith and hoping that we can resolve the issues that are in front of us, and if not resolve them completely, potentially narrow them significantly, so we can be more efficient in terms of how we deal with the applications in this process. I think we're caught up by the timeline, and it's not an issue of staff, it's not an issue of agencies, it's just the complexity of having to deal with these issues is leading to this extension request.
Thank you.
Councillor Pierce, and then Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So I guess I'll start off by saying, I'm all in favor of helping proponents out to try and resolve things and get through things. So I'll preface things by starting with that. But my concern is it's not small little things here that need to be rectified. Like, you've got 4 issues here that are major issues, one of them being septic, one of them being access to either Highway 24 or Oakland Road, which in essence, it's not our planning staff or the county that is saying no, it's the MTO that's saying no. And then the natural heritage and features with the Road A or Road 1, whatever it is, there's no other real access onto that site other than off of Highway 24, and we know MTO has already said no to that. So what I'm worried about here is we're going to get to April 30th, and as much as our planning staff I'm sure is going to help, in my gut I don't feel that we're going to resolve these issues. You say you're optimistic that you can, but explain to me what happens when we hit April 30th and these issues still aren't resolved. I appreciate the fact that you're telling us that, we won't go to the OLT on this, we won't file to the OLT. Well, in all honesty, you're filing to the OLT for a refusal, and the refusal is based on 4 major issues that you as the developer proponent have failed to comply to. So I'm trying to understand your optimism in resolving these issues, especially I'll take the septic and the access.
Right. So yes, and so these issues are being worked on concurrently, and so I'm part of my optimism is an understanding that I believe we can resolve these issues, or at least significantly narrow them, so that they can be dealt with in a scoped review, or potentially a scoped hearing if that were to occur. So in terms of septic contamination, certainly there is no basis, or there's no reasonable approval that could be provided that allowed for contamination of an aquifer. From a planning point of view, an engineering point of view, a technical point of view, that certainly would not be approvable. So we have to solve that. And certainly our technical information that we have provided indicates to us that there isn't the scope of concern that's been raised in the staff comments. However, those comments have been raised, and because they've been provided to us only as recently as last month in detail, in fact, I don't have the peer review comments, I don't understand the true depth and detail of those comments. And I'm looking for the opportunity to have that dialogue with your staff, and also to review the peer review that's been done, and to understand the potential we have for resolving that. So I think part of this is that we simply run out of time. In terms of the access issue in Highway 24 and 27, we have active discussions with the MTO and are looking at alternatives that may satisfy their issues. So they aren't at an impasse that's not resolvable, but we do need more time to have that discussion with them. In terms of the floodplain analysis, that has been completed and that has been provided to the Conservation Authority. And we're confident that we're very close to resolution of that particular issue. And in terms of community design, the refinement to the floodplain and the floodplain analysis is going to result in changes to the road patterns and walkways and park configurations on the site. So all of that is part of the discussion that I think needs to happen within 90 days. So these are all active issues and actively being discussed. I can't commit to and I can't commit that these agencies are going to be fully satisfied by the resolutions that we bring to the table. But I can commit to you that we're coming forward in an earnest attempt to try and resolve these issues. And we're looking for those additional 90 days to see if we can come to those terms.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller and then Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Three to Mr. Bouchard. Yeah, Councillor Pierce touched on my first question, and just taking the MTO, I don't know if 90 days plus another 90 days plus another 90 days would still get you there, but keep trying, I guess. I wanted to ask you about water and wastewater. Did you have you looked at any of those modular units that are out there?
So, not in terms of a modular unit to provide for a communal system for the full subdivision. What we are looking at is additional treatment units that would be appended to, the septic bed and provide for pre-treatment. So, now, having said that, I'm not going to take anything off the table in this discussion, and that's certainly something I'd be prepared to talk to staff about.
Okay, thank you. Because I know the technology is quite advanced, and I'm sure it could reduce the nitrate loading and all that stuff. So something to think about in the future, anyways.
Councillor Howes.
Yeah.
Councillor Chambers.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this is not a question to the delegation. It's more of a procedural question. I understand the message that the delegation is delivering. My question is, will we, when we get to item 10.1 on the agenda, will we have an opportunity for staff to illuminate for us the advantages and the disadvantages of deferral as opposed to a decision?
Absolutely. I should have had a motion actually to refer this to section 10.1. Maybe this is a good time to ask for that. Put it on the floor. And is that what you want to do with the delegation? Is to refer it to 10.1? Councillor Oakley.
Once there are no further questions.
That's right. I should have done it first. So we'll do Councillor Oakley and Councillor Howes will second that. Are there any other questions? It's on the floor and it has been seconded. Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, I understand we're going to refer the delegation to the item on the agenda and discuss it at that point. But I would like to ask the applicant a question kind of related to that report. So I'm kind of blurring the lines here a little bit. And my question is this, and I'm sure you've read these staff recommendations. If a significant amount of revisions are required that actually mandate an entire reconfiguration of the design of the proposal, at what point does the proposal that was presented to the public in essence become a new proposal or a new application as opposed to the existing application? In other words, at what point does the application that was presented become such that it is changed so much that it doesn't reflect what the application was applied for?
You
All
heard
right.
the-
So I think to answer your question is you're asking me really is how long is a piece of string? And in this industry, there is quite a bit of latitude for the modification of an application. And so when I look at this application, essentially it provides for a residential subdivision, single-family residential subdivision application. So contextually, that's I think is what we're dealing with. The modifications to road layouts, the modifications to flood lines, etc., and perhaps accesses don't constitute a new application in my view, or something that's so significant it would be considered new. If we brought forward an application that was completely different and for commercial or non-residential use, I think that would constitute a new application. But I think there's a lot of flexibility for us to work through the issues that are being put in front of us within the context of this application.
Are there any other questions? Before we call the vote, I have one concern, and I have a concern that you would take the kindness that we are giving this application to get closer to the finish line, but not quite make it, and then go and tell people how hard you've worked to almost get there when you haven't gotten there, and the time that we've given you has turned out to bite us in the backside. So that's my only concern with deferring something like this. It's giving you more time, and then you could get close but not get there, and it would be our own fault. So I just hope that council sort of got that too. With that being said, as the last comments, I call the vote. All those in favor to take it to 10.1 for discussion. I'd like to thank the delegation. Thank you. And
Thank you very much. And all I can say to that is this request is being brought forward in good faith.
thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Our decision will also be made in the very best of faith. Takes us to number 6 on the agenda, which is the previous minutes. Councillor Coleman? Yes, that was the delegation. He wasn't there. Yeah. Do you want me to look for him?
I'm sorry. Are you looking for me, sir? Kevin Bittard or?
Okay, we'll move on to number 6, which is the adoption of the minutes of the previous minutes with meeting, and we don't have any. Business arising from those minutes, obviously there's none. Consent items, there aren't any. Committee reports, there aren't any. Which means I flipped the page and we're at 10.1, which is the discussion of the evening, taking into consideration the comments of the delegation. And Kaylee, you have that.
Thank you. Good evening, Council and members of the public. I am here this evening to present a recommendation report for a zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision application for lands that are located at 245 Oakland Road in Scotland. The subject lands are shown on the screen with the yellow star, and they're within the secondary settlement area of Scotland, fronting on the south side of Oakland Road and the east side of Highway 24. And frontage along both of these fall within the MTO jurisdiction. The lands are approximately 27 hectares or 69 acres. The subject lands are designated as suburban residential, agriculture, and natural heritage in the official plan. And in the new council adopted official plan, they are proposed to be designated as village community lands and natural heritage. as you will see on the screen here, there are several natural features on the site, including GRCA regulated areas, wetland, watercourse, floodplain, woodlot, and vegetation. And you'll also see that the zoning on the subject lands is agricultural and natural heritage. The map on the screen shows the development proposal submitted to staff, and as stated earlier, the proposal seeks to rezone the subject lands to facilitate the subdivision of 37 residential lots and includes a stormwater block, a park block, roads, and environmental protection areas. The screen here does show that as part of the complete application, several studies were submitted to staff, and I have attached these studies to your to the report for council to review, and this does include the peer review of the geotechnical report. So I think it's important for staff to outline some of the history and timelines as it relates to the submission. So in February of 2023, the agent submitted an application to staff, and at this time, the applications were reviewed and deemed to be incomplete, mainly due to issues relating to servicing, natural heritage, access, and redesign. The agent's IPS disputed staff's position on the incomplete application, and in April of 2023, the agent filed a motion to the Ontario Land Tribunal. As a result of filing the motion to the board, further information was supplied by the agent to staff, and the application was then deemed complete on November 2nd of 2023. The push by the agent to deem these applications complete meant that although the studies were provided, the information within was not necessarily adequate or to the standards of what staff felt was a complete application. Once deemed complete, staff were in a position to move the applications forward as per the Planning Act timelines, which require a 90-day decision for zoning amendments and a 120-day decision for subdivisions. So the applications are before you for recommendation tonight in order to meet those Planning Act timelines and to give council an opportunity to make a decision on these applications. I should note that the agent is seeking a deferral from council, and planning staff have consulted with our legal team, and a deferral is not considered a decision. A deferral that aims to forego the timelines of the Planning Act, there still cannot be a waiver around a statutory provision. So in essence, a deferral does still open opportunities for appeal and for fee refunds. In addition to the policy review within my recommendation report, I will highlight that there are 4 key concerns that staff raise, as well as various commenting agencies. So these concerns relate to servicing in the sense that the current development proposal does put some risk to the community related to the septic system contaminants and the use of private water servicing from a highly vulnerable aquifer. It has not been demonstrated that 37 residential lots are safe and appropriate and in the public interest. Secondly, there's access concerns. So streets A, B, and C as proposed are not acceptable to both the County of Brant as well as the Ministry of Transportation. The application has not demonstrated safe access into the site, and changes to the road pattern will result in a redesign of the lot fabric and the overall parcel. Third concern relates to natural heritage protection. So the application does require further floodplain analysis work incorporated into a revised development plan and reflected in the revised EIS and stormwater management report. There's also a concern related to Street A as it's proposed. It does go through a provincially significant wetland, and so alternative options do need to be explored for Street A as provincial conservation authority and municipal policies do not permit development or site alteration in significant wetlands. And then finally, the complete community design. So significant amount of revisions, as noted, to this proposal will require an entire reconfiguration of design. And through this work, consideration could be given for different housing types and densities once we explore servicing options. There's also some limited consideration for the current proposal as it relates to public trails and connectivity to natural areas. Overall, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal requesting to change the zoning and subdivide the lots on the subject lands is not appropriate at this time, as the development does not meet the planning policy regime or development requirements noted in the report. The details of the request do not demonstrate that the development is desirable or appropriate. The application does not completely address servicing, safe access, natural heritage, or complete community design to the satisfaction of the county. The application as submitted does not represent sustainable development, is not good planning, and is not in the public interest. The application is not in conformity with the policies of the growth plan or the provincial policy statement. And the application is not in conformity with the general intent of the County of Brant official plan and zoning bylaw. Planning staff are recommending refusal of the applications. This concludes my presentation this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions for staff? Councillor Chambers.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question related to the "or" part of the recommendation that's on the agenda. And that the question is related to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and it's related to perhaps a position that needs to be developed, and it should be, in my opinion, my question should be in camera because it relates to the moving forward in a strategic manner. So how do I proceed to answer or get my question answered without going into camera?
Without knowing what your question is, Councillor Chambers, I have no answer for you.
Procedurally, can I move that we go in camera to discuss this? Is that allowed? Or is that not in accordance with the procedural situation with the committee?
Madam Clerk.
Through your worship to Councillor Chambers, are you requesting that we go in camera to obtain legal advice from the solicitor who's
Yes.
currently here? Then I would suggest that possibly we could put this report on the table until we come back out of the in-camera portion. So we could move this consideration of this report to be decided on following our in-camera discussion, and we could add that discussion to the in-camera portion.
Councillor Chambers.
And I recognize that the deliberation of an application should be done in open session. And if we move in camera specifically for an item, a question, I don't have a problem with that. But I don't want it to be assumed that we are moving in camera to deliberate the application. That's my dilemma.
Madam Clerk.
Through your worship to Councillor Chambers, that would be correct. We would not be able to discuss in any way the application itself. Should you wish to discuss with a solicitor, specifically in terms of solicitor advice, that would be possible, but any type of deliberation in terms of the actual application itself must be done in open session.
Okay, so with that being said, is there any other discussion? With that being said, I would like a mover and a seconder, because we have two options in front of us, to deny or to defer, or any of the combinations. Pardon?
That's what I thought.
Through your worship, if we're gonna table this item, then what would happen is any motion on this item, debate, moving, seconding, would occur after we come out of the in-camera session.
Okay, I would think the direction to do everything we just talked about needs to come after this is on the floor. Shouldn't Councillor Chambers have spoken to this once it was on the floor? Or?
Mr. Mayor, I'll try this. I'll move that we defer for an in-camera session for a question to be presented to be answered by the solicitor, which is in-camera in nature.
Perfect. Seeking a seconder. Councillor Pierce. Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Which takes us to communications, then number 11 on the agenda, which there aren't any resolutions, there aren't any new business. Does anyone have anything to add to the new business part? I never asked, but if there's anything, no? Okay, which takes us to number 14 in camera, and Councillor Miller, you're going to take us there.
Yes, I am. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Howes, that County of Brant convene in Canberra to discuss litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals. This is related to 70-72 Beverly Street West OLT appeal. And I guess we would also put in there, Madam Clerk, a question regarding 245 Oakland Road.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, and we're in camera. We're going in camera. For those in the audience that want to stay Okay, we're live and we're back in open session. Councillor Chambers, do you want to carry on with the discussion?
No.
My question was answered, and I'm prepared to continue with the deliberation.
Okay,
And if you wish, Mr. Mayor, I'll move that I'll move the staff recommendation as it was presented.
okay. Option one or two, Councillor Chambers?
Option one, the refusal, and the refusal.
Needing a seconder is Councillor Pierce. Everyone's clear on what we're voting on. It's to refuse the application. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? It's carried. Thank you.
Yeah, that's.
Bylaws, number 15, and that's Councillor Coleman. We only have one bylaw. Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chambers, that the bylaw 1-24 now be read a first time.
All those in favor of the first reading of the bylaw? If you could do the second reading, please, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chambers, that the following bylaw 1-24 be now read a second time and all preambles and clauses be adopted.
Are there any questions to the second reading of the bylaw? Seeing none, if you could do the third reading, Councillor Coleman.
Got a vote,
Oh.
Mr. Mayor.
Got a vote. All those in favor of the second reading? Now, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chambers, that the following bylaw -124 now be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
All those in favor of the third reading of the bylaw? That's great. Thank you. Takes us to number 16 on the agenda, which is the adjournment, and the next meeting will be January the 30th, 2024. Councillor Pierce,
Mr. Mayor, I will not be in attendance at that meeting.
do you want to leave me your proxy?
We may discuss that.
All right. Anything else for the betterment